Hello, and welcome to Advanced Circulatory System Physiology. My name is Erin, and I'll be teaching this online course with Johns Hopkins University. So we're going to start by doing a quick unit on reviewing the basics of the circulatory system. Like this picture that I found, it actually shows you really neatly where the heart sits in our body, so you can see the heart is surrounded on both sides by ribs, right? And in fact, I didn't draw it in yet, but let me go ahead and show you where the lungs would be. So this is the right lung on this side. And then on this side, you would have your left lung. So this is where your heart sits, between two lungs. And I'm saying left and right from the perspective of the person who owns this heart. So this is their left and right, which is the opposite of us if we're looking at it. So the heart is actually sitting between the two lungs within their protective casing, that the ribs are basically there to keep all these organs safe. And then below them, so if you draw this here, or I guess if I draw it, you can see now that below all of this stuff is a really, really important muscle. So this muscle, people don't talk about this muscle, or this is not the kind of muscle that you usually see people working on at the gym, but this muscle is called the diaphragm. So diaphragm muscle and your ribs are enclosing a space, right? So the diaphragm becomes the floor, and the ribs are the ceiling and the walls of this space. And if you look at the contents of this space, you'd have your lungs and you'd have your heart. So this entire space then is called your thorax. So what exactly does the heart do? Let's actually make a little bit of space now and bring up a zoomed in version of the heart. So let me start by giving you a clear picture to the heart. So this would be our right lung, and this would be our left lung. And all of this would be inside of the rib cage, but I'm not going to draw that now because that would make it harder to see the heart itself. So to think about exactly what the heart does, I think one kind of neat way to do that is to actually imagine that you're a cell. So put yourself in the perspective of a cell. And let's say that you're a cell hanging out over here. This is you. And you can think about any part of the body that you could be. So let's just say for today that you're a little toe cell. Okay, excuse me, toe cell. You know what? I'm actually going to get rid of these lungs because they're kind of in the way. You know they're there. Okay, so back to your cell. You're the toe cell. And your job, of course, is to live and be happy. So you've got nearby a little blood vessel. And in fact, every cell in our body has a little blood vessel that's nearby. And this toe cell is just trying to make a living. And toe cells need certain things, right? They need, for example, let's say oxygen. They need oxygen and they need nutrients, right? So cells need certain things to live and be happy. On the flip side, they also make waste. They're in a sense just like us. They make waste, and that waste could be all sorts of things. And one that kind of jumps to mind is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is waste for this cell. So it's making some waste, and for the moment, let's imagine that there's no blood flow. So even though there's a blood vessel nearby, really no flow is happening. So I'll just write no flow. So as the little cell makes waste, so let's just draw some of that right here, it's going to start accumulating, and you're going to start collecting more and more of it since the blood is not really flowing. And it might kind of end up getting all the way around our toe cell, like I'm drawing now. So our toe cell is getting swamped, literally getting kind of covered by its own waste. And on the flip side, is it getting any oxygen or nutrients? No, it's not. So it's getting neither of these things. So before very long, I would say within minutes, our toe cell is thinking, well, this is not a very happy way to live. This is actually really very sad. This is awful. And if this continues, the toe cell would die. So what a toe cell needs, and what every cell needs, and that could be a finger cell or a skin cell, or really any cell that's living needs flow, right? So it needs this blood to be flowing nicely and smoothly. And if there is flow, then you've got a very different picture, right? So if there's flow, then all of a sudden this waste here is being lifted and it's being taken away. So it's a little bit like having someone come by and pick up the trash. Then you don't have the trash all over your house. So then you have nice flow, and then in return to that, you have the oxygen and nutrients to the blood vessel coming in. So all of a sudden, the cell is going to be very, very happy, and it's going to be living just fine. So really, if you want all of the cells in your body to be living just fine like this cell here, you really want good flow throughout the body. And so this is really point number 1. Flow is that you really need somehow to have blood flow moving and pushing blood constantly throughout the body. So to do this for billions and billions of cells, you would need a pretty powerful pump, right? Something that's going to be able to pull in all the blood from the body and then push it back out. That's what the heart is. I mean, at its core, that's exactly what the heart is doing. It's an amazing pump, pushing blood so that you have good blood flow. So I'm going to write that out on the side as kind of job number 1. These are the jobs of the heart. So jobs, and number 1 would be blood flow. And I wrote here systemic flow. And all that systemic means is that I'm referring to the entire body. So systemic, when I say that word, I just mean the entire body. So all the cells in the body. Now, exactly how that happens, actually, you can see on this picture here. So let's take a look at that. So here you have a giant vein. So this is a vein. And then you have an artery here. So this is an artery. And blood is actually going through the artery that way. And it's actually coming into 2 veins, the one at the top. This is called the superior. Superior just kind of means at the top. So I put superior vena cava. That's just the name of the vein. And then at the bottom here, you can't see it because it's on the other side of the heart, but there's another vein called the inferior vena cava. And these 2 veins, this is also a vein. These 2 veins are actually dragging blood in from all over the body into the heart. And then when the heart is ready to pump it back out, it goes into this artery. And the name of it is the aorta. So let me go ahead and put that. So if you've heard of the aorta, this is the artery that people are talking about. So this is how blood comes and gets pumped around. But this isn't actually the only job of the heart. The second job of the heart is actually also in this picture, and I redrew my lungs here, it's actually called pulmonary flow. So pulmonary flow. So what does that mean? Well, we know that cells are expecting oxygen, right? We know this. And that they have a lot of carbon dioxide waste. Well, it's good to keep things moving around. It's good to move blood around, but if you ever never actually get rid of that carbon dioxide or brought in new oxygen, then a cell is not going to be very happy either. I mean, you can have blood flow, but at some point, it's also going to want some oxygen, and it's going to want to get rid of that carbon dioxide. So that's where the lungs come in. So what happens is that the heart, before sending blood out the aorta, before just dishing it back into the body, it actually sends the blood over to the lungs. So it'll send it over to the left lung, and it'll send it over to the right lung. And the blood then comes back from the right lung, and it comes back from the left lung, and gets pushed back into the heart, and then gets squeezed through the aorta. So there's this little extra little step here where blood is going to and from the lungs, and that's the pulmonary flow. So the final thing you'll notice if you look at this picture, and it's hard to not notice, is that there are these kind of wriggly looking little blood vessels throughout the heart. And what are these exactly? I mean, you know, you have the red ones and you have the blue ones. And the blue ones are obviously the veins, and the red ones are the arteries. But are they part of the systemic flow, the pulmonary flow, or something else? Well, these blood vessels, all of them together, are called coronary blood vessels. And so specifically, you might hear about a coronary artery or a coronary veins, but together you can call them coronary blood vessels. So these coronary blood vessels are actually serving the heart muscle itself. I mean, remember, the heart is made up of thousands and thousands, actually tens of thousands of cells, and those cells, just like our toe cell we looked at earlier, they also need oxygen, nutrients, and have waste. So those cells are going to need blood vessels supplying them as well. So that's what the coronary blood vessels, That's what the coronary blood vessels are. They're literally the blood vessels that go up and serve the heart. So these are the ones that serve the heart. Now, if they're serving the heart muscles and the heart cells, then think about it. Would that fit under the systemic flow or pulmonary flow? Well, if the main job is to serve the needs of cells, then the coronary vessels fall under the systemic flow. And this concludes the first lecture in Unit 1.